I love comedy movies. How often do we quote them, rewatch them, and escape into them to forget all our troubles?
Cream? No, thank you. I take it back. Like my man.
Who can ever forget the chest waxing scene in The 40-Year-Old Virgin? Or the Black Knight in The Holy Grail? Or the tarantula in Home Alone? Sharing laughter with your friends and family is one of the greatest joys we can experience. Yet, if you look at the statistics, we are slowly moving away from watching comedies on the big screen. Are streaming services to blame?
Yes! Yes!
Almost certainly. But are we endlessly rewatching and quoting Murder Mystery, The Polka King, and Red Notice?
No, 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 no!
Most certainly not. So what happened? Are movies not as funny as they used to be? Have we, the audience, lost interest? Or is it something else?
I don't know.
If you ignore the downturn in 2020, the market share for comedy movies has suffered a significant drop since the mid-2010s.
That escalated quickly. I mean, that really got out of hand fast.
Curiously, it was also around this time that Hangover director Todd Phillips said that he had left comedy because woke culture had ruined it. And this got me thinking, did he have a point? Was the timing of his quote occurring during ongoing box office decline a mere coincidence? Or are there other factors? There's no denying the number of high-profile failures these past years. So what's happened? Because I'm a nerd, I've tried to approach this phenomenon using a scientific approach.
Tell them about the Twinkie.
What about the Twinkie?
With credit to Box Office Mojo, I analyzed the highest grossing movies for the past 40 years, measured how many were comedies, compared live action versus animation, what market share each represents, and arrived at an overall trend.
Damn, I'm good!
So let's begin. I'm starting with the 1980s, as I think this is the decade with the most memorable, most quotable, and most ingrained in pop culture movies.
That's not a knife. That's a knife.
Highlights from this era include Back to the Future, Beverly Hills Cop, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and Ghostbusters.
What about the Twinkie?
And, as you can see, in each year, almost half of the top 10 is made up of comedies, 1988 being a standout year, with 9 out of the 10 highest grossing movies being comedies.
Our laugh can be a very powerful thing. Why, sometimes in life, it's the only weapon we have.
Of the top 100 movies, 55 were comedies, with only one of these being animated. So the 1980s gets an overall score of 55% for comedies and 54% for live action. Pretty impressive. The 90s saw the rise of Pixar and a return to form for Disney animated features. Other cinematic highlights include Home Alone, Ace Ventura, Austin Powers, and Men in Black. Overall, the decade holds steady, though there is a slight decline caused by big special effects movies. Meaning, the 1990s gets a score of 42% for comedies, with 37% for live action. Already a big decrease. But things are about to get worse. Franchise movies really took off in the 2000s, with wizards, superheroes, and pirates all becoming box office juggernauts. Comedy highlights include Shrek, Meet the Parents, The Hangover, and Elf. There was also a huge increase in animated comedies. So the 2000s has an overall score of 36% for comedies, with 15% for live action, which is less than half the previous decade. The shift in popular culture had now become very apparent. The box office continued to be dominated by big-budget franchise movies, with Marvel movies in particular consistently making and breaking records. Comedy highlights include Ted, Deadpool, and remakes of The Grinch and Jumanji. And the score for cinematic comedies makes for depressing reading. With an overall score of 24% and a live-action score of just 5%.
No way.
Yes way. Out of the 100 highest-grossing movies during the last decade, only 5 were live-action comedies. If we look at the scores on a decade-by-decade basis, it becomes crystal clear that our box office appetite for comedy is slowly disappearing. It's very easy to point the finger at cancel culture and that we're no longer allowed to be funny. But it's not like audiences simply don't like comedy anymore. Stand-up comedy is a huge draw on Netflix, with acts on all sides of the political spectrum. The Book of Mormon is one of the longest-running and most successful Broadway shows of all time, and it features themes and humor that you'd think would trigger both the left and right wing. And sitcoms like Fleabag, Big Mouth, Veep, and Curb Your Enthusiasm continue to push boundaries.
I submit you took that baseball, stashed it in your unusually large vagina, and walked right on out of here.
Then what's the problem? My personal opinion is that we choose not to watch movies on the big screen unless they are worthy. We save the occasion for the blockbusters, the big action scenes, and special effects. It somehow seems a waste of money to see a buddy movie or a rom-com when you can just wait for it to come out on streaming. I don't think comedy is becoming harder. I just think you have to acknowledge your market. Let's compare two movies, which in theory had the same objective, but went about them in two very different ways. I'm talking about I Feel Pretty, starring Amy Schumer, and Barbie, starring Margot Robbie. On paper, they are both about sexism, female empowerment, and societal pressure about image. Yet one bombed, and the other grossed over $1 billion and became a pop culture smash.
What? Oh my god, you see this? Yes.
One big advantage for Barbie is that it's an established brand, so it already had a head start in this franchise-dominated landscape.
Pretty Dreams Barbie doll is the biggest, most huggable soft Barbie ever.
It also had the visuals and production values worthy of the big screen, so spending your money was made to feel worth it. But the biggest downside for I Feel Pretty was that it failed to acknowledge its audience. In a world where body positivity is pushed more and more, where plus-sized models are commonplace, and fat-shaming is akin to blasphemy, trying to sell a movie where the lead character believes she solved all her problems by simply being skinny was never going to work.
Okay, now I know you don't recognize me. You're thinking, who is this girl and why is she here? What was she doing covering our screaming ass mouths? You guys, it's me, Renee.
It was never about the casting, and it was never about Amy Schumer's performance. It was about the audience. Maybe 20 years ago, it would have been a hit. But today, whether you agree with them or not, the majority of moviegoers simply don't find this premise to be funny. Barbie, on the other hand, absolutely had its eyes open to the world we live in. The idea of freedom and equality, the hypocrisy of the patriarchy, and the importance of mental health. This is what's important to society today, so these are the themes the movie focuses on. Do I think it's the funniest movie of the year? Not by a long shot. But it proves comedy movies are not dead by giving us the same thing we got in Ghostbusters, Elf, Beverly Hills Cop, Home Alone, and all the other classics.
What?
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 It gave us a character we could all root for.